Socrates wrote those words some 2,400 years ago. I guess he didn't foresee that some things just wouldn't change. There has always been an uneasy relationship between kids and adults, and to greater or lesser extents, that relationship has always been influenced by some basic concepts: class, economy, family, and the difference between how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us. And every once in a while, a movement comes along that takes it all to heart and challenges everything about its society.
I wanna be punks! Come on! Just weekend punks! I wanna be punks!
I'm Tony Lima. In the spring and summer of 1976, the British newspapers were plastered with coverage of the early punk scene. They were critical of the musicianship, and you can't really blame them. They were aghast at the camp and outrage inherent in the bands, and they didn't miss the rebellion that was part of the subculture. Punk had arrived. It was born in the clubs of New York City and propelled overseas by bands like the Velvet Underground, the New York Dolls, and the Ramones. Later, in London, Ontario, people would take the music and the collective solution to being young and inexperienced as freely as youth anywhere else.
He was saying, "Come here, little girl. Come join the party, come have some fun." And it was a rebellion stage, and it had nothing to do with that. It was more of an independence thing. Going with a crowd that was unique, that was different, and doing what you wanted to do and really enjoying what you were in and what you were involved with at the time. Such as, it led to getting into a band myself and just crazy things. The crazy things that you do when you're 18, 19 years old and you think you're invincible.
The more conservative it is in a city, you can bet your life a punk scene's going to start up there. It was going to happen, and it did, in a big way.
Here's another example of what I'm talking about. Again from the paper in my face.
Punk had arrived in London with all its volume and cultural indicators. But who were those early punks, and where did they come from?
I was born in London, England, in July of ¡51. Actually, it was a small village outside of Wimbledon, where I grew up until I was nearly 7 years old, a place called Carlshorten Beaches. And then I came to Canada with my folks when I was 6 and a half, my brothers and my mum. And we first arrived in East London.
When you come from a small town like Tillsonburg, London's a pretty big city, and I was, one stoplight, and we never had licenses for motorbikes or anything. This is where we're coming from. We come to a big city, right?
I was born right here and I grew up right here, so I was mostly downtown, so I started running into some of the people as it started happening.
I loved London then. It was such a thriving underground, it seemed. There's all these little shops opening, underground stores selling books on how to grow marijuana and stuff.
Originally from Toronto. As a kid, my dad was in the railway, so we moved around a lot. We were in Toronto, Montreal, back to Toronto, and then finally came to London in, I guess, about '69. And when I first got here, as far as music, there was nothing. In Toronto, I listened to Chum FM, which was pretty ahead of its time. We'd hear the Beatles, full albums. We'd come to London, and there was nothing whatsoever. I was totally bored out of my head when I came here.
I was born in Quebec City. I moved here when I was 6, and I've been here ever since. The music was, when I was in high school, I listened to folk, because it was the only alternative thing you could find. So I was listening to like Chick Corea and Jesse Winchester, and I liked it because it was different, but it didn't really do much for me. And then when I was in grade 12, we went on a trip to England, and I went to some bars underage, and I saw, Dire Straits, who really blew me away, and the Sex Pistols, who I thought were disgusting but interesting. And the punk rock scene was just starting then in England.
The summer of '76, and I met a friend of Keith Whitaker's that he went to high school at. They both went to Westminster. I think they were in the same English class together. And Mike Niederman had gone to London, England that summer. and he brought back about a dozen punk rock records. So Keith and I were over at his studio on Dundas Street one evening, and he was playing the Sex Pistols and the Clash and UK Subs and what else? The Ramones and the Damned. And I hear you're putting a band together, Keith. He says, yeah, I ran into a kid up at Western who plays guitar and he likes this punk rock stuff, you know. And he says he knows of a young fella by the name of Ian Aitchison to play bass. And he said to Mike, and Nick's going to play drums.
I moved here in '81 when I was 17. Not even 17, just before I turned 17. And that was basically phasing down. But basically, when I moved to London, I found punk.
So I went to this party, me and my friend Sandy. And we saw the Demics and was like, wow, that's cool.
I had an interest in seeing the Demics because in my neighborhood where I grew up, Keith Whitaker lived down the road, the lead singer from the Demics. And even back then, before he was a Demic, he was the sort of guy you looked at walking down the street. And there was attitude, there was character there. He was someone you took notice of.
It's a loft show I saw where you're right on floor level with the band, and like the distance I am from you is probably, you know, the distance I was from Keith Whitaker. And he was just like this, and like singing right into my face, and you know, eyes right into your face, which if you watch lead singers is kind of rare for lead singers, especially back then, to be like so in your face where they're like just like this, and it was like so intense.
They had the kind of energy that I could relate to, and nothing else had that energy, and I related to that. I think because I came from an extreme environment, and I related more to that. I got to have a lot going on before I let loose, and it had that kind of energy, so I could, wow, vent. And I never experienced it in my life like that. It was like, wow, I can really relate to this, what they're doing.
Blue Boot, which was just a total hole in the wall. Like the few times I had been there beforehand, you know, you might go in and there might be two old rummies in the corner or something. So the owner really had nothing to lose by letting this band come in and play. And eventually the joke sort of was that this original owner, I can't remember his name, eventually, you know, sold the bar and retired to Florida or whatever, just off the money he made in the 2 years that the Demics played there.
As the Demics blazed a trail as one of the country's first punk bands, punk grabbed a foothold in the city's conservative landscape. First they performed at local underground galleries and neighborhood lofts. Then they settled in at a couple of bars downtown. The London Free Press didn't miss the excesses.
There's beer constantly being swilled, and one of the original stories in the London Free Press was about the Demics playing at New York. And it was something like Demics rock out and sell tides of beer. And that's what it was, you know, it was just like, and beer was a lot cheaper back then than it is now.
And I ended up going to the Cedar Lounge and hanging out in the tourist section because I didn't dress up, so I wasn't allowed in the regular section.
I was afraid to go in at first because I'd never seen a bar that crowded. Like people standing up. In regular bars, you didn't stand up. You sat at your table with your beer. You couldn't walk around with your beer. You were stuck there. And at the Cedar, it was totally different. You could walk around with a beer, you could jump up and down, you could be crazy.
Well, the Cedar Lounge was on 2 levels. The main level with the stage and the dance floor was the biggest part, and then just off to the left was about 3 steps up where the bathrooms were. There was a section where the tourists sat and That's what we were referred to, and we were just sort of there to watch the action.
And I believe I walked into the bar with a head full of hair, an afro hairdo, and my moccasins on. And, you know, my really wide jeans and things, and I was totally a tourist and out of place. And yet when I walked in, I just fell in love with the atmosphere. The way that, you know, it was wild. I mean, people were slam dancing, the teens were loud, and people were having a great time, and nobody seemed to really care about what the other guy was doing. I mean, it was very sort of an independent kind of way, and that struck me right there. I liked it. I definitely belonged in the tourist section, but I fell in love with it right away, and just sort of, I went, it's like, cut my hair off, short. And I went to the hairdresser, and it's like, it's not short enough, it needs to be shorter, shorter, shorter. My pants, they need to be tighter, and they need to be peg legs, and, you know, the sneakers and the whole 9 yards, because I knew that that's where I personally wanted to be, and where I think I belonged at the time.
Oh, there was the art community, then the social misfits, and misfits from college and university. They all got together, and it seemed like we all got together, and for a while we were all in the same playing field.
Everybody was constantly mingling, talking, and, you know, having a laugh, and if you wanted to dance, you just went on the dance floor and started dancing.
I do remember seeing the demics and pogoing and slam dancing with everybody, and, you know, just sort of the I want to go to New York City thing, you know, just sort of dancing along and slamming, and, you know, it was great because you'd slam with your friends, and I mean, the dance was really quite unusual.
The first image I saw of the Demics was Keith Whitaker diving off the stage, face first, into the crowd to go after someone who he was not too happy with. The band didn't miss a note and kept going, and you just looked around that place and just saw all this interactive energy.
Keith was a great promoter for the band. He was constantly talking about the band and the music. Hey, I've got this great band, come down and see us. But that's what Keith was always like, you know, he was always, man, you gotta see this. Forget about that other music, come down here and see us and stuff, you know. So it was great that way. Like, he started the whole scene. It basically, you know, that one guy created the whole scene that, you know, spread out into all these different bands.
They weren't professional musicians by any standards, that's for sure. They were just out there to have fun. They were us on the stage, basically. They were the kids that went to see the shows, and first thing you know, they've graduated to the stage. And they had a great time, and so did we.
Acts like Wayne County and Eddie and the Hot Rods toured through London, while the Demics and Uranus played the local clubs and began to push the envelope.
The band I saw in London that I really liked was Uranus, and that was at the Cedar Lounge. They were a rock and roll band, something that you didn't see anywhere else. They were playing rockabilly songs that you didn't hear on the radio. You had to go digging to find. They were playing Johnny Burnett and the Rock and Roll Trio. I'd never heard any band play that. I was just blown away with them. And because of the Uranus, I kept going back to the Cedar Lounge. And then finally I got into the punk stuff.
The music just grabbed me right away. I liked it. I loved it. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard. To me, it was a rebirth of rock and roll. All the pretension was gone. The 20-minute solos were gone. The ridiculous drum solos were gone. It was rock and roll, stripped down to the bare bones.
Hey, man, we're going to play some old punk rock for you.
Back then, the heavy metal bands would have, like Led Zeppelin would have 10-minute, 20-minute drum solos. You could go outside, smoke a joint, come back in, and the drum solo still wouldn't be done. Like, give me a break. A punk band could have played 10 songs in that time. Just watch the Ramones. They did it every night.
We were coming off a really bad time in music because it was like prog rock, it was disco, and a lot of music that was not at the time considered very cool. And it was like, the general feeling is that punk kind of kicked rock and roll music in the pants again and got it to be like it should have been back in the 50s. You know, it was like rebellious, with scared parents. You know, it was Satan's music. If it's 3 chords, that's great. Like, people understand 3 chords. Like, look at country. It survived on 3 chords forever. And it's so popular. It's so popular. But people relate to 3 chords, there's no doubt about it. The Ramones are still great today after a zillion years.
They took Music Matters into their own hands, led by the example of those who came before. The principal bond was the music, its intensity and simplicity, and its open invitation to the audience for participation.
October 1978, Halloween, the Polish Hall, the Demics, the Pop-Tarts, the Sophisticados. It was my first punk rock show. Somebody kicked open the side door and about 30 of us ran in. Life was never the same again.
Now it seems so easy, the do-it-yourself mentality, but back then, everybody's just going, the Demics were cool, and we were all hanging out and everything, and then they go, well, why don't you put a band in? And I go, well, I don't know how to play guitar, I can't play drums. He goes, that doesn't matter. You think, like it's got to be like Styx or like Queen, you got to be Brian May, right? Like you got to be able to, or you got to be Eddie Van Halen to be in a band, right? And then these guys are going, no, you don't have to be.
We were all just learning our instruments, and I was really crappy and everything, but we sort of locked ourselves in a room, and I just kept going at it for a good year or so anyhow, and then it started to sound all right. I can remember the very first rehearsal, I came over with the 26 string, got liquored out of my head, and they did too, and the drum kit was just a piece of total crap. It had string holding the foot pedal together, but it didn't really matter because I couldn't play anyhow, so I just kind of hacked away at it, and we just had a good time. Basically, that was about it.
I didn't learn from Joe Satriani or anything. I'm just up there doing it. I can make a bar chord, or I can pluck, or I can hit some stuff. It's just get up there and do it. And if anyone turn around and say, well, you guys suck, well, get up and do better.
So there was Scott Bentley and myself. I was playing drums, and Bob Glidden on bass, and a guy by the name of Larry Gifford on guitar. And we rehearsed in Scott Bentley's parents' his dad's basement of his house. And I remember Bob Bentley coming down the stairs one evening, covering his ears with a big cigar in his mouth, just shaking his head.
My brother and my parents, they've always played around the house. And they had parties, and the guitars came out. My mother sang, my brother played too, and my dad plays every stringed instrument on the planet, so it sort of sunk in a bit.
I was writing a lot of songs too. I started writing almost as soon as I started playing, so that was yet another form of liberation, and finding your creativity and finding out, things about yourself, really, and what you like and what you don't like, and music was my escape, I guess, from things I didn't like in life.
We were NFG for like a couple of years, and then we couldn't get a gig, right? We were a punk band.
And it took us, I think, a good 2 years before we actually have formed a band, Crash 80s, and when we finally did, I remember Rob Brent coming up to us and saying, what took you so long?
Baby, baby, don't you know I like your skin? Baby, baby, won't you please let me in?
Simon Lewis was a Fanshot student, and he wrote a whole bunch of that early stuff, and then he left. Obviously, he was a student, and it was time to go, so he quit, and then we got Mark Scott. We couldn't get a gig, so we just said, well, we'll change our name. We couldn't get a gig anywhere in London or outside of London, so we just thought of some names and came up with that.
Back when we were going to see other bands prior to punk bands, if a band made a mistake on stage, it was, oh my God, this can't happen. But Monroe did it, they laughed, they just kept playing. It was really, literally like a freight train. You just got out of the way.
Rock and roll.
The problem with punk culture is that not everything about it fits neatly into one box. There was an art school spark from the get-go, and politics can rear its head in any culture or subculture, and the punks weren't immune. They were feeling divisions throughout society and within the group. As one person recalled, some of them would show up at the bar in full OK Corral drag, like the popular Earp Brothers, in black frock coats, vests, and cowboy boots. They weren't part of the little clique.
Or they were always dressed like cowboys. They all had cowboy hats on at that point, and guns and all that kind of thing.
I still had long hair then. They were all bugging me to get a haircut. The only one that told me not to was Jimmy Weatherstone from the Demics, the drummer. He told me not to listen to anybody. If I didn't want to cut my hair, not to bother.
I was more long hair, heavy metal, southern rock, kind of like rocker dude. I hooked up with Scott and he introduced me. I was 18 years old, he used to sneak me into Fry's, and wow, man, this is what it's all about. This is real music, you know, it's none of this lighter stuff.
Scott was one of those characters I was aware of before NFG or 63 Monroe formed. When I was about 11, 12 years old, I grew up in the west end of London, and I used to hop on the bus and come downtown to buy records. There was always this guy hovering around downtown with really long hair, rocking clothes, just stood out from everybody. Scott, the lead singer from 63 Monroe.
And we'd see people get beat up and some of the abuse that they used to take. I felt pretty strongly about it, and what fueled it was getting attacked. I mean, it made you feel even more justified in what you were doing. It made me feel like this is right. This is something that I should be involved in. This is good for me. This is part of my identity. I'm really identifying with this.
The media gets a hold of something and they start feeding all this fear and stuff into the paper, and maybe that's the only way that you'll learn about what's happening at the Blue Boot. You'll read in the paper, oh, punk rockers stab each other on the dance floor.
Another world beyond the doors.
The Free Press every now and then would write about punks down at the Cedar Lounge, right? If you want to see some punk music, go down to the Cedar Lounge, right?
If you had orange hair and went to your high school back when I was going to high school, you'd probably get the crap beat out of you, or you'd be a total pariah, right?
You would get the jocks, or just the downtown rocker types who went there just looking for trouble. More often than not, when you went to the lounge, there was people there looking to see what trouble they could kick up.
Well, Pete, our bass player, had booked us a gig at the Park Hill Arena, and the Kinsmen were putting on a dance, their monthly dance. So they wanted a band to play, so we went. They hired us. $1,200, bring your PA. We're playing in an arena, licensed gig, right? So everybody in Park would think 63 Monroe is a 60s cover band, right? So they think they're going to be hearing all the old classics. We're pretty, glammed, punked, the whole 9 yards. And we show up and set up, and everybody's just kind of going, what's going on here? This is terrible, right? We're just playing. All of a sudden, I'm up on stage playing, and my friend's up dancing, and all of a sudden this big old redneck boy comes by and just cold cocks him, right? Down. He's down. He's out. He's on the floor, right? My girlfriend is like, she goes after, and he gives her a smack too, right? So I come running off the stage, and I boot the guy, and the drummer comes over the drum kit, the guitar players come down with it. So there's this huge melee in the middle of the park. We go in the dressing room, the guy running the show goes in, here's your money. The show's over. Thanks for coming out. I said, okay, fine, let's get the hell out of here. We go to leave. Somebody had taken all the valve stems out of our van, so we couldn't drive. So we couldn't even leave to get out of town.
One time in the Vic Tavern, another upscale joint we were playing at, and we had this wild drunken man, and then all of a sudden he took one of the bar stools with the arms on, like the bar chairs with the arms coming out, and he grabbed it. It was facing towards him, and he smacked it down on the ground, and the arm broke off. And this was while we were playing, and we already knew we hated punk rock. So Johnny O and I were looking at each other. We were on a stage. There was 5 of us in the band at that time, so there was no room to move at all. And Johnny O and I are kind of looking at each other, and I'm thinking to myself, Johnny, one of us is going to die.
Surprised they survived it, and they're not they're not as bitter as I am about living in a town. I mean, that kind of thing, that's just asking for it. Someone's gonna throttle you out in the parking lot or right there on stage. I gotta admire them for going out and doing something like that.
When we come back, looking for the lost port, trying to cross the border, and women in punk music.
It wasn't whether you were man or woman or rich or poor or whatever. It was what you had to say and the way you treated people, and as far as the music, what you were capable of. And that's what people looked at for the most part. I mean, there's always few. There's a chauvinist in every crowd. There's got to be, you know, but it doesn't bother me.
There was lots of girls that were into, you know, playing or singing or, you know, doing their punk rock thing.
Well, there was the Zealots in town, which were an almost all-girl band, and they influenced me a lot in that, you know, well, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, it's what you're capable of, and that's down to you, you know, so, and then there was the Crash 80s with Linda Harvey on bass, and she was a great inspiration to me. I'd only been playing bass for 2 months the first time that I saw them, and it was just, you know, if I can play like her, you know, I can do whatever, you know.
And there was UCase with my buddy Rose in it, and she was excellent. Her voice, you know, it amazes me to this day, the range that she had developed in her voice and how she could go, you know, from really a low tone to an extremely high tone. And there was lots of girls that were into, you know, playing or singing or, you know, doing their punk rock thing.
I think one of the best local recordings would be the Hippies, the Nuclear Disaster EP.
That's Kelly Mulvey on vocals.
Brian Young, Lindsay Young.
And Henry Cox.
I don't think gender really mattered. To me, it didn't matter. To me, it didn't make one difference to me whether, like, I really love Marianne Faithfull, and I like her raw and her gritty voice. Now, when I see girls up there on stage doing their thing, I really like that. I tend to have sort of a preference for girls who can get up there and do that. As far as it is different again, you know? It is sort of different to see girls up there doing it. It's really common nowadays.
It's no surprise that punks question conformity and authority by looking and sounding different. Economic and social disparities unleveled the playing field. British punks were tired of being on the dole, out of school and out of work. They felt alienated from the rest of society. Some of those elements were true in the Forest City, and for the most part, the movement was still an outgroup, isolated from the mainstream.
I think our punk scene was part and parcel of the stuffiness of this city that a lot of people felt they were being suffocated, and we needed some air, so we made some room.
I think a lot of people were feeling like rejects, basically, and so they all kind of huddled together and got comfort from each other, is what near as I could tell from some of it. Some of the people were like that, other ones were, I don't know, a little more punk rock snobbish in some ways, you know, because they were the first punk rockers, and I don't know if they really wanted other people joining in or not, but they had to get some new blood in there because there were only about 20 of them. What were they going to do?
I think it was just a gathering of oddballs, and it still is. If you look at the young punks or whatever, they remind me of like the kids that were probably in the Star Trek club. back in high school or something. You know, like they just seem like oddballs. They're, you know, the weirdos of society. And I think when I was in high school, I was trying to sort of like, you know, like most people in high school, you try to stay somewhere in the center, and you know, and you're ignored kind of, because everybody was just totally out there. They weren't inhibited at all, you know, and they were allowed to be the weirdos that they are, and people have not only tolerated it, but they appreciated it, and they pushed it forward. They say, yeah, you know, be the weirdo that you are. Yeah, come on, do that. Yeah, you know, go ahead. Yeah, you know, whereas everything else in like high school, it's like suppressing it. If somebody is the least bit weird, you know, somebody's going to point that out right away. You're weird.
Well, for me, it was great because it was the first time I ever felt like I fit in anywhere, you know. That was the big thing.
You feel like you're a misfit. Well, you're not going to sit in the midst of everybody wearing their designer clothes and everything. So you go someplace where everybody else looks like just as much of an old ball as you. So you fit right in.
99% of the city was terrified of it. I mean, they didn't know what to make of it. And that was part of the exciting element of it, too.
I mean, we had people, mothers who would turn their children's head away so that they didn't look at us because we were odd or different.
People were pretty weird. I knew one guy who used to eat glass, like bite glass. Like when he'd be drinking out of his glass, he'd finish it and he'd chew the glass. Like, what's with that? I don't know. And cut themselves up, I don't know. But
some people went down Dundas Street and smashed windows on both sides of Dundas Street. And the next day there was a write-up in the Free Press. It said, punk rock band invades London.
okay, let's go spray bomb some buildings, gang, okay. That was fun in those days.
I think he dropped his drawers once or twice, which I find absolutely disgraceful. He used to bang glasses off his head. One day, it was working, people get all excited about it. One day he did it, the whole room went silent. That was the last time he did it.
And Pogo went so wild, he knocked me right over. He was on the tables and throwing everything around, and he jumped off, knocked me totally over.
Laying on the floor in my living room reading the Toronto Star. The headline was "Rock is alive and sick and living in London."
Mainstream media tried to defang the beast, so the punks countered with fanzines. It allowed them to express their views, but it also brought greater attention. As the musicianship improved, the performances became more astute, and the fashion, although still outrageous and camp, became more contrived.
Lo and behold, we ended up opening for a band at the Cedar Lounge, the Blue Boot, and I was just on top of the world. I thought it was the greatest thing. I had a couple of glasses of wine before I went on, threw on a little eyeliner, the rest was history.
Scott was such an attention getter.
Marky was the glam guy, always into glam, the makeup and the whole bit. Scott was into that too. Well, all of them were, like the Dolls influence, for sure.
Came out on stage with a monk's cowl on, and all you could see were these earrings swinging back and forth, big silver earrings catching the light, swinging back and forth. And it was not until probably 10 or 12 songs that he took the cowl off, and then you saw all the jewelry and the makeup, and it was great.
Played at the legendary CBGB's once with Johnny Blitz's band from the Dead Boys, and then all the Dead Boys were there except Stiv. It was August, it was about 3,000 degrees out, and we were going into New York, and you know, the traffic is like, you can walk faster in traffic. And we had the van open, the back door open in the van, you know, and feet are hanging out while we're going into New York.
To be up on stage there, wow. Thought we made it for a day.
So one of these conventions was in Boston. It was around 1984. I am there early, and I see this tiny car drive up with Ontario license plates, and 4 guys climb out of the car, and it looks like the kind where you see 4 clowns climbing out of a little miniature car at the circus. And I asked who they were, and they said they were 4 guys from London, Ontario, and they called themselves 63 Monroe. And being the music director of a radio station, I asked if they had any records that they had brought with them that they'd like a radio station like ours to play. And they pulled out this 45 here of Henry VIII. And they said, here, can you get this some airplay? And I said, I'll do my best. And what ended up happening was we played it on our station and it just had a life of its own. A few months later, we received a second record from 63 Monroe. It was their recording of White Christmas, this little revved up version that they did, which was very popular here in London. So I was about ready to start playing it until I looked at the back of the record, and among all the credits was my name right here, Chuck Miller, and my radio station, WHCL. So that was a very nice touch.
I can remember going to Detroit one time.
As soon as I see the Detroit border, I'm starting to sweat.
We got stopped at the Ambassador Bridge.
We get pulled over, we get asked to come in and inspected.
Then they started going through all our stuff, and we're standing outside having a cigarette, and we hear the guy go, "Stop them, they got guns."
Just as I was about to get inspected,
because of course Scott had his holsters with his guns, that toy guns that he carried.
Scott had a starter's pistol, and they thought it was a real pistol, and we're crossing the border.
And they hauled us in. I think they were going to give Mark Scott a cavity search. I don't think it got that far, but
there's a few things I'm not going to mention for legal purposes.
And they turned us away. We went to the tunnel and we tried to get across, and they wouldn't let us through. So we went back to the bridge, and they finally told us that we'd never get back in the country again if we didn't go home.
Couldn't do the show. Boo-hoo.
The What's the Poop magazine was one of several local fanzines that would spring up. They were great to promote the bands and to keep the subculture banner waving. And they used the same philosophy to printing fanzines as they did putting together bands and learning to play instruments. They did it themselves.
First thing you know, we're interviewing Deja Voodoo that night. We're taking pictures of them, and first thing you know, there's an issue out with Deja Voodoo in it.
Our first two issues are pretty sad. Pretty sad looking. Real do-it-yourself efforts. 9.5 years we did them. We went from issue 5 to issue 22.
We went with surf and rockabilly. We covered wrestling. Everything that was a little bit like B-movie type thing. A little bit off the beaten track. And we went in that direction instead of following what a lot of the local bands were doing. We wrote about what we liked. That's the whole idea of a fanzine. It's not what other people want to read about. It's why we do it. We didn't make any money at it, that's for sure. We lost a small fortune, basically.
In the summer of 1984, it became apparent that the punks were still not accepted into the mainstream, and their attire was problematic for police. The London Free Press reported that Scott Bentley had been charged with carrying a concealed weapon. His studded leather bracelets were deemed dangerous.
Charged me with possession of prohibited weapon, which was a spiked wristband, and it took a 1.5 years, but it finally got thrown out of court.
For you.
To many, it's ironic that conservative London led to the birth of such a potent punk scene. Others consider it natural that conservatism led to anger, alienation, and a mistrust of the mainstream. But as we look around, we realize the toll and notice that some of the original punks have fallen, many before their time, leaving only questions and memories.
I mean, everybody comes to a fork in the road, and you have to decide which way am I going to go at that fork. And you know, so many of the people I know have chosen the wrong way, and that makes me sad.
Keith Whitaker's dead. Keith was pretty excessive with the drinking and smoking.
It was really like a shocker. Like, it's something you just didn't expect. But I think Rooster just got too caught up in it. It was really a sad thing. And he was irreplaceable. He could have played in any band on this planet. He was that good. I think back then people thought, you know, there could be a nuclear war tomorrow, so like, who gives a let's go and do it?
But just a way to relieve the stress and the frustrations of, you know, working in dead-end jobs in factories or working in a restaurant, you know, picking up other people's garbage and that kind of thing. It was a real release.
People will go down that path whether you tell them they shouldn't or not. You know, I mean, it's really unfortunate. I've like had a lot of friends that have died as a result. I thankfully had the fear of drugs put in me at a really early age, so I never had to really deal with it. I mean, I drank my face off for many years. Got that under control these days, thank God.
Penthouse magazine, they had an expose on English punks, and they had all these pictures of punks raising babies. You know how punks would get married, and then they would have a baby, and the baby would have a mohawk, and you know, it would be in a leather vest and everything. And I was thinking the other day, I wonder if anybody ever knows where those people are right now. I'd like to know what they look like now, and what their kids probably in Wall Street or something, you know, totally. Because you always rebel against whatever your parent is, right?
You'd start to see young kids coming in who had these preconceived notions of what a punk rocker should be, whereas originally it wasn't people who were really dressed in the typical leather jackets, chains. It was people that were like just bizarre people, and they had their own weird way of dressing, and there was guys with cowboy hats, and there was, you know, long hair, and other guys that were just, you know, it was oddballs.
When I see a punk today, it's like, you know, I helped pave the way for you, you know? And they look at me as if I'm, you know, just some old lady going down the road. You know, they have no idea about the roots in London. There was a lot of oddballs and a lot of misfits down at the Cedar Lounge. And yet some of those people that are labeled oddballs and misfits would be the nicest people you would ever have known. I mean, sometimes it's not about, you know, the exterior.
Even though 25 years have passed since the first punk rock bands started making waves in London, they're still an influence today.
They're still as popular as ever, maybe even more popular. You get the people that grew up with the scene, that, you know, looking to replace their albums. You get the younger kids that, you know, have heard about it. Maybe they heard some of their parents' albums looking for stuff. And, you know, prices on some of the independent punk releases have gone right through the roof. Like, it's the next big collectible is punk music, especially the indie stuff. Like, you know, like 63 Monroe, or the Hippies, or, you know, some of the other London bands. The 45s, you know, probably at the time, maybe sold 100 copies, if that. And now they're going for like big bucks. You know, we've sold 63 Monroe albums to like guys in Singapore.
62 Monroe's first record has got a high value in the punk rock collecting community. That record just generally goes for about $100. It's an expensive record. The Demix records are generally around $20 to $30. They have declined in price because they have been reissued on CD. Some of the Crash 80s record, again, the generics, all those London independent punk rock releases all command a certain amount of money. But the Monroe record is the most widely known around the world because it did get bootlegged, and it's probably the most valuable.
It's amazing when you consider that London, Ontario's most famous citizen in the music industry is Guy Lombardo, and yet London has created a megapolis of punk, hardcore, glam punk, rock and roll in clubs like the Cedar Lounge, of course the Blue Boot as it's always used to be known. And it's just that amazing dichotomy that a conservative, you know, high-class, white-collar town like London has this amazing subculture of punks and hardcores and people that just enjoy the musical freedom that punk music provides.
People were coming from Detroit, Boston, Philadelphia, and saying that London was the best punk scene they'd ever been a part of.
We thought we were radical and different from everybody else, but we weren't. We were just kids having fun.
I'm Henry the Eighth, I am. Henry the Eighth, I am. I got married to the widow next door. She's been married 7 times before, and everyone was an Henry. Wouldn't have a Willie or a Sam. I'm a right loud man, I'm Henry. Henry the Eighth, I am.
Before a song said it was very fast and short.
Second verse, Simon's the first. I'm Henry the Eighth, I am. Henry the Eighth, I am.
I guess we united in our differences, you know, like it was the more different you were, the more likely you were to be accepted.
Everyone was an Henry. Wouldn't have a Willie or a Sam. I'm a right out man, I'm Henry. Henry the Eighth, I am.
What was your impression of the Blue Boot? It was a dump, but it was a great time.
Coming up from Exeter and driving into London, that was a big deal on its own.
So being from Exeter, you must be a big fan of UIC.
I like them, they're all right.
One, two, three, go! I'm Henry the Eighth, I am.
No, I did not see Keith Whitaker. I know him, I loved him. Rest in peace, Keith Whitaker, but no, I didn't see him.
Everyone was an Henry. Wouldn't have a Willie or a Sam. I'm a right loud man, I'm Henry.
People get caught up and do other things. They do different jobs and stuff, but they never lose that spirit that made them want to get up on stage and play in the first place, you know? So you can't help getting old. It happens to everybody, you know?
Thank you ever so much, everybody. That was so much fun.